Hello, Patreon people. Welcome to another thrilling episode of Professor Moptop. That's what I'm calling it this week. As always, millions of thank yous to all of you. I hope you're all digging your spring if you like that type of thing. Or if you're waiting for the winter, I hope that it gets here eventually. This week, you're going to be hearing about Abbey Road. It seems like Abbey Road really seems to resonate with a lot of Beatle fans, as well as people that aren't huge into the Beatles. It seems like people that are just peripheral fans are really big fans of Abbey Road. I guess it's just because the Beatles are fantastic. The first song you're going to hear about this week is "Oh Darling," which Paul McCartney wrote because he wanted it to sound like it was a song from the 1950s. In the 60s, towards the second half of the decade, a lot of the music from the 50s had been about 10, 15 years old now, and it had just begun getting replayed for people who were reminiscing about hearing the music when they were growing up. This is around the time that the term oldies was created. Well, Frank Zappa did an album called Cruisin' with Reuben and the Jets, and all those songs sound like greasy love songs from the 1950s. If you get a chance to listen to that, I highly advise it. Another favorite song of the Beatles when they were growing up was called One Night with You, which is what Elvis Presley did it as. It's also a Fats Domino song, which was originally done by a guy named Smiley Lewis, and it was known as One Night of Sin. You'll hear all about that in your audio that you get. When they were recording music for the Get Back sessions, they were rehearsing a lot of songs, and they didn't get through a lot of them, and a lot of them never got finished for the Let It Be album. But, as I've said several times before, the Beatles never really let a good idea go to waste. So Paul dusted it off and revived it for the Abbey Road sessions, and they recorded the rhythm track for it. And then Paul wanted to have a really rough-sounding vocal for it. He wanted it to sound like his voice sounded first thing in the morning. As you'll hear Professor Moptop saying, at 4:30 in the afternoon on several days, Paul McCartney tried it, which was first thing in the morning for him. He gave it a go, tried it once. If he didn't like it, he tried it again the next day. After a few attempts, he finally got that rough quality that he was striving for. You'll hear some cool hunks of audio where it's isolated, and you can just hear Paul's vocal with some of the harmony vocals from John, Paul, and George on it as well. The other song you're going to hear about this week is a real favorite of a lot of people. It's hugely popular because it's Ringo and it's Abbey Road. It is Octopus's Garden, which is the second Starkey composition for the Beatles. Again, they tried it during Let It Be, but they didn't get very far. As I talked about when I talked about back in the USSR, Ringo quit the band for a while. Paul was being critical of his drumming, and Ringo said, "That's it, I quit." He eventually came back, obviously, but while he was away, he went on a boat. It was a yacht owned by Peter Sellers. It was known as the Amalfis, and while he was there, the captain fed Ringo squid and talked to him all about the life of the octopus, how they live underground and they collect shiny things, and Ringo just loved this, a safe place to hide away, which is exactly what he was looking for at the time. Ringo also very openly says that, quote, the medication that he was on, which means drugs, greatly inspired him to write Octopus's Garden. Well, after he got back to the band and got back to work, he showed this to George, who helped him finish it up. They tried it a little bit for Get Back, but they never really got too far with it. They did work real hard on it for Abbey Road. And for this, even though the Beatles weren't getting along especially well, Ringo had a special part in each of their hearts, so they all worked together to get the song done. And they did a very good job on this as well. They all played nice, they all professionally did their parts, and then as they were finishing up the song, they also continued to support Ringo and encourage him. On the song, we hear a couple cool things. We hear bubbles being blown into a glass. This is by Ringo. This was for the underwater effect, because keep in mind, an Octopus's Garden would indeed be underwater. Also on it, we hear a Moog or Moog synthesizer. I'm still not sure how that is pronounced. It depends on who you talk to or when you talk to them. Octopus's Garden stands out as one of the funnest songs in the entire Beatle catalog. It's just cool. It's underwater. It's Ringo. It's Abbey Road. Thank you as always. I will be sending out WeTransfers for you. Thank you for downloading these promptly as I send them out. Thank you so much always for the kind words. I appreciate them as well. And thank you for just being you. I'm Professor Moptop. You have yourself a very good week.